So we're starting to see a little bit of the dining scene mature. That doesn't mean that the growth is slowing down. It doesn't mean that there's lots of changes not going to be happening, but we're just starting to see perhaps a spreading of some of that growth rather than perhaps the spurts of growth that we've had over the last 2, 3 or 4 years. Just to go through some stats, a huge number here, $550 billion of planned investment in new travel destinations over the next 6 years, making Saudi the biggest investor in tourism worldwide. Obviously, this is a number of different sectors. This covers all elements of tourism attractions, from hotels, but also some of the other big giga projects and projects that are happening out there. $23.5 billion is the estimated F&B market for this year. That growth rate looking forward through to 2029 sees a little bit of a slowdown, about 3.5% compound growth over the next 4 to 5 years, but still huge numbers out there happening, but showing that spread as we go forward. 33,500 cafes, restaurants, bakeries in the Riyadh region, 25% of the total Saudi market. I think that starts to lead us into the opportunities of a lot happening in Riyadh. The growth starts to spread out and slow down, but what about the other 75% of the market? And I think that's where we're going to start to see a lot of growth happening over the next few years. And this is a huge stat. Kicking off this year, 80 plus new hotel projects within the kingdom. Again, targeting those inbound tourists that are going to be coming in, whether it's for business or for leisure, but a huge growth and obviously creating a lot of opportunities within the food and beverage sector as we go forward. Homegrown talent, I think the panel before touched on it quite a bit. This is really going to be a driver of that change as we start to see it come to market. And I think, as we all know, talent, what does talent need? It needs the opportunity to incubate, it needs the opportunity for education, it needs the opportunity to really nurture and grow that entrepreneurial talent. Ministry of Culture, we're very excited, very proud. We've just been appointed on a project to identify 6 culinary superstars of the future in Saudi, put together a program for them and get them to a level where they can actually get out into their own bricks and mortar space and start showing the kingdom, the wider region and worldwide what the kingdom can do. As we all know, young population, I think Martin mentioned it earlier, large percentage of the population below 30 and the median age is just over 30. And this really, we know the hospitality industry is a great opportunity to create life-changing opportunities. As we all know, you don't need a big PhD, you don't need to be a rocket scientist, as it were. Hard work, good with people, talent and a bit of common sense means that there's an opportunity for people, especially in the outlying regions, perhaps not in the big cities, but in the outlying regions, a great opportunity to create life-changing opportunities for Saudis and also to help support us with the Saudiization program as well. So rather than seeing the Saudiization as a challenge of how do we integrate the percentages that we need into our business, actually having people that are talented, motivated and want to be in the industry, I think will help us make a huge amount of change. And again, I think you touched beautifully on it earlier on as well, talking about that beautiful mix of taking Saudi hospitality, marrying that with global standards. I think it was a lovely quote earlier on about the movement of Europe into Asia and now into Saudi. And as we all know, we've all been welcomed into Saudi's homes. We've all been treated extremely well and shown how to welcome people into your houses and into your lives. And I think a blend of those two things is really going to set the market apart going into the future. So, international trends, bringing that together with the local concepts. As we all know, most of the big brands have come here, especially in the QSR market, and now in the fine dining market as well. But what are we seeing in the market? We're really seeing that continued welcome of new and interesting and exciting, and I think especially in that luxury, upscale, casual sector. Lots of opportunities there, and we're starting to see some interesting concepts coming in. But also this idea that how do you take the local concepts, how do you mix that with the international concepts and start to do something that's really going to reflect the local culture and the country. And I think what's great to see is the amount of investment that's been put behind growing these SMEs. So a great opportunity for people in the F&B sector, supported by things like TDF and other government agencies as part of the 2023 vision, and how we then grow that into the future and go from there. That should be 2030 vision, obviously. So really now, what are diners looking for? Hopefully a few of you might have been down to Al Mamlaka Social Dining down at the Kingdom Centre, but they're really looking for this space where it's social and inclusive when they go out to eat. And that's a number of different areas. It's really allowing us to drive this new type of food hall. We'd like to think that the food hall we have here is something that not only is something interesting and exciting and a first for the Saudi market, but also sets standards within the region and even on a global stage with some of the feedback we've had so far. And I think the reason it's worked so well is it's really working for this social hub. Straight away, all the people that were working in the tower, it became the lunch canteen, it became the office restaurant, it's where everyone came to hang out at lunch, but it also started to drive people together, and we've seen lots of different groups mix. Saudi locals are in there, we're seeing the local sort of people from the other parts of the region, but also international travellers when they come through. It started to become a destination, and seeing that inclusion is really something wonderful to see. However, one of the key things we looked at was making sure that the price point was accessible. So our average check-in there at the moment is 75 SAR. And again, you can come and spend a little bit more money if you want in the evening for a more elevated experience. But if you want to come in, grab a coffee and a croissant at a reasonable price, you can do that. We want to see people there on a very regular basis because that's that whole sense of community and how that works. And again, I'm preaching to the converted, but as we know, to create great F&B, wonderful spaces are one thing, but you've got to get those basics right. Again, you've got to have craveable food that people want to come back for. It's got to be photogenic, because we all know it drives our marketing now as we go forward. It's got to be well priced. That doesn't mean cheap, but it definitely doesn't mean expensive. But it's also got to be delivered on a consistent basis. And I think that comes back to the previous slide about supporting on the education and developing the talent to make sure we can deliver on those consistency levels. So this new generation of food hall, and I think the food hall is starting to change and develop as we go forward. And as we look at that now, it took us a little while with Al Mamlaka to get the local market to understand that even though there's a high concession fee to pay within these models, you can still quite easily deliver a 20% EBITDA plus. And as we all know, in a restaurant market, you're quite often happy to get 10%. So to be able to do that, especially when that low capex model is in place, makes it a very exciting, interesting sector to be in. We thought this was a great stat as well, looking at the targeted change in household income in moving in towards cultural and experiential spending. Going from 3% up to 6% is a doubling of that spend. And especially when you couple that, when you look at last year's growth within the restaurant sector, that starts to become some fairly serious reals that are being spent within the market. So again, something for us to keep an eye and look on and to continue to develop our classic restaurants, but also there's experiences within those classic restaurants as well. So the next stage, and I think we had a lovely chat about it just now on the stage, looking at how these food and beverage offerings are now being reimagined as we move forward. We all remember the mocktails when they were very sweet and too much fruit juice. Now we're seeing these beautifully crafted, well-balanced drinks that people can sit and drink a number of, not just the one, and that's enough. So that's becoming a real big trend, and I think as well, coupled with, as you mentioned earlier, the general drive around the world for people consuming less alcohol and even no alcohol. Some of you may have read there's actually been a bar opened in Manchester, of all places, which is a zero alcohol and non-alcoholic cocktail only. So if they can do it in Manchester, I think we can definitely drive a market in this part of the world. Again, I think we touched on it before, there's a need for replacing what as Europeans might have as our late lounges and our nightclubs. Those late night places to go for a great coffee, a well-crafted specialty coffee, or also going there for great pastries and desserts, is definitely a market and an opportunity there for us to look at and develop. And we're seeing that happening more and more. We're also going to be bringing over Janice Wong from Singapore. It's as part of the Red Sea development. She's going to do her 2 a.m. dessert bar. Amazing pastries, but coupled with an amazing mocktail program as well. And as we all know, probably the one that's probably going to start to overtake a little bit the food hall trend is the competitive social dining. More and more interest in going out, having the activations and the activities, as well as the dining element as part of your going out. Some of you will be probably aware, most of you probably aware, I think we're going to see a lot of this coming together in the development at Qiddiya. So very exciting there, where we're going to have this sort of unique district which is for e-sport and gaming, and a full set of experiential food and beverage as part of that. We will have more on all of those things coming out soon. Hopefully, if you check into our website, we'll have our food and beverage trends report coming out soon, and I think we'll cover on all of those elements that I've just touched on a little bit there to allow people to see what's happening in more detail. So with that said, I would now like to invite a few people up onto the stage and open up the debate, if that's okay. Just wait for your seats to be in place. I don't want to keep you standing up here. So if I may invite first Talar Keshishian, who's the Senior Manager of Leasing for Retail Development at Red Sea Global. Talar, welcome stage. Madan Manjeshwar, who's Director of Finance at AlMoajil, Hospitality. Morning, Madan. And if I may, Natarajan, who's the Chief Executive Officer from Kayanee, a beautiful new development down in DQ. Welcome this morning. Please take a seat. Thank you. So thank you so much for joining me this morning. Obviously great to have you, you seasoned professionals and industry experts with us here today. Talar, I'd like to kick off with you if it's okay. Sure. In your opinion, how are food and beverage concepts in the Kingdom evolving and adapting to consumer preferences and to the goals of developers as well?
Okay, so at this time we're witnessing in Saudi market, basically in F&B market, many shifts. And this shift is being driven by both the consumers and the developers. The developers from one side, they're not only requiring the F&B operators just to occupy a space. They're searching for brands that will add value to the community, to the complex, to the property, and will improve the whole experience of the visitors or the consumers. On the other side, the consumers are they have become more sophisticated. They are no longer looking only for food, but experience is very important, major component in making their decisions, whether to go to this restaurant or the other restaurant. So the focus is towards more experience, providing a full experience. What do we mean by full experience? Full experience starts from booking the table, starts at the door, welcoming the guests, excellent food, unique cuisine maybe. Also sometimes they are requiring additional show at their table, next to their table, maybe the chef will come and prepare something special dish for the special dish of the restaurant. And also design and decoration is playing a major role. They want to go to a place where they can enjoy the vibes, the environment. We also are witnessing the emergence of the homegrown brands as have been discussed previously in the previous panel. And this is like many entrepreneurs invested in this business and they became successful, which are encouraging many talented Saudi entrepreneurs also to go take this path. Also, there are many factors that is encouraging this trend, which is the support from the government, the sports and entertainment activities that are happening, the pop-ups. So these are the major things that are happening, and the developers are trying to understand and customize them into their developments.
Brilliant, great. Thank you for that. Very, very great answer. Madan, to you. For you, how's food and beverage combining now with entertainment to offer new levels of value and experience to guests? And are there any other projects you're working on at the moment that might be examples of that?
In the Saudi market, the customer expectations that we see are significantly higher. If I go back, let's say, 5 or 10 years, a typical Saudi customer would expect to receive in Saudi Arabia what he would have experienced, let's say, on his holidays to Europe or the UK or to the US. Today, the expectation levels have significantly increased. The European is not the benchmark anymore. They are looking for their own benchmarks. So to that extent, the expectations are so significantly higher and they are constantly evolving. So within Saudi Arabia, given that these expectations are rising, what is it that local businesses need to provide to be able to match that expectation? This is a I wouldn't call it a challenge because it is relatively easily accomplishable as well. With respect to what we are doing at AlMoajil, we are wanting to develop a huge area that will give a complete entertainment experience, which will include a hotel stay, which will include a unique experience. Unfortunately, I cannot divulge details at this stage.
You have to share a few. It's the only reason you were allowed to come. Come on, get a few secrets.
But we've got something very exciting on the drawing board. I hope we'll be able to share that fairly shortly. But between entertainment, between food and beverage, between retail, between hotel. So the idea is to have a homegrown brand. The hotel brand is also expected to be a homegrown brand. We are also working on a spa that is a homegrown brand. The idea is to create a Saudi brand for the Saudi market. That's, I think, the best fit rather than have an international brand just come in and offer what it otherwise offers in the rest of the world.
From there.
So there are some interesting things that are being worked on. But the Saudi market is, in that sense, unique because there is disposable income, there is a requirement for affluence, there is lifestyle, there is luxury. There are a number of things that the Saudi market is capable and is able and is willing to spend on.
We look forward to hearing more about that secret project as soon as possible. But it leads very nicely into Vic. You're talking about homegrown brands. Vic, you've been very hands-on and instrumental in the launch of a new homegrown brand, Kayanee, which would be great to hear a little bit more about as you answer the question. But for you, what are the consumers looking for, in brands and experiences in Saudi today?
So I don't know how many of you know Kayanee, but Kayanee is, so we're not a pure F&B player. Kayanee was created, we are under the PIF, we are created for the wellness of women in Saudi Arabia. So it's a homegrown concept, but we've taken the best of the world in various different aspects. And the way we looked at wellness was across different pillars. How do you create a concept that can increase wellness in women in Saudi? And we looked at healthy eating obviously was one part of it, so that you eat healthier. We wanted them to move more, so dance fitness. We have apparel, personal care, learning, and nutrition. So we took these 6 aspects and put them together in a physical space. So when you look at the discussions that have been going on now, a lot of them tend to be on core F&B operators. The way I looked at when we were creating this concept was, how do you integrate a healthy F&B concept into the space seamlessly that women or even men in the retail area come in, they can come in regularly, right? All the time, every day, whether they come in to eat, they go in to dance, but you're creating a space where you're not only purely transacting for food. So coming back to your point on the social aspect from your presentation. So we wanted women to come together socially, have a great smoothie, have a sandwich, have jarish but with a twist, make it healthier. Do that, go and buy some apparel, try on personal care, and after some time go for a dance class with your friends. And that was the concept that Kayanee came over. And I think we are obviously ahead of the curve because we wanted to create this to start a movement. And that movement goes across moving more to eating healthier. And that's a big part of, food is obviously a huge part of Saudi culture. When I've moved from Singapore here nearly 2 years ago, and I was shocked at how much food is a part of the culture here. I thought Singapore was really strong in food. And the culture of sort of generosity, authenticity, really wanting to do that. So when you add now the social touch and the different businesses that come in, it's a great space to come and spend a lot of time in that space. And so I think with the initial feedback we've got, that interest is there. I don't think there are enough new concepts here right now doing this. And it's great to hear that everybody's looking at these sort of concepts going forward, whether it's Mamlaka, what you have created from a social dining to the new concept. Right? But that's exactly what we are looking at. And then our aim is to take such a concept and go take it from Saudi to the world.
So great. Well, I had the pleasure to visit the concept yesterday, so I recommend anyone that would love to see a beautifully balanced experience, then they should go down to DQ and see Kayanee down there. So thank you for that.
I had the chance and it was really nice.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Some damage on the credit card, Talar?
No.
No? Not yet.
I have a rule: nobody can come into Kayanee and not spend and go.
Talar, coming back to you. For you, what are the trends, styles, or sort of formats of food and beverage that are really standing out in the market at the moment?
What I believe is standing out now is, will be trending more, are the social diners and the food halls with the success of Al-Mamlaka. However, this doesn't mean that the social diner or the food hall will replace the food court. Each one of them have their own positioning, their own offering, their own pricing. But because the trend is to go more into experience, social places, so that's why this will be trending, and we are expecting to see many of the new developers to design space for this type of food halls. However, one thing we have to note that food halls doesn't work anywhere. Choosing the strategic location of the food hall is very important because there's a huge capex that will be invested there, and we need to secure the food hall and the covers, the turnover of the covers. So I believe that this will be moving forward. Also, what we see are the homegrown Saudi coffee concepts in the neighborhoods. These concepts, they are very popular in their own neighborhood. Sometimes they are not expanding, but they are very popular in their neighborhood. Whenever you pass by, you see that area fully packed with people, busy, any time of the day, vibrant. So what I believe is that these Saudi entrepreneurs understood the needs of that community and reflected them into the offering, into their brand. And with having a nice setup, it encourages them to be there, and they were able to engage them in their communication strategies.
Yeah. I think that's a great point, because I think the two are almost linked, whether it's the food hall trend or the local coffee shop, and sometimes why things don't move to different areas, to different neighbourhoods.
Yeah.
You need to be focused on your local community, don't you? You need to make sure that someone who runs a coffee shop knows everyone's name, and whether you're doing a food hall,
Yeah.
it's got to be based on the local demographic and not
True.
just taking it from one part of the city will automatically work
it
somewhere
might not
else.
work.
Exactly, yeah. No, great
And
point.
I want to add a point about the social diners, like in food halls. The nice thing is that you can introduce new cuisine to the place, and this is what consumers are asking for. They want to see change. So with the flexibility of changing those cuisines within the food hall and the nice spacious place, it's welcoming for families, welcoming for business lunches and hanging out with friends and colleagues.
Very much so. So leading from what Talar just said, Madan, what do you think are going to be those new things that people are looking for within the F&B space? What are those going to be those new trends, those new experiences?
I think what has happened is F&B is no longer pure F&B. It's moved away from just food to having an experience. So what does it include? As Talar mentioned, starting with your booking, starting with the choices, starting with even a simple thing like valet parking, guest reception, the overall ambience. I did a little survey in our own restaurant, and we run Nozomi, which is a fine dining Japanese restaurant. And most people who come in are friends who are only wanting to bond over food. Food is not the end. Food is only the means to an end. They want a nice place to be able to sit, to be able to catch up. That's meeting place. And at the same time, have a nice meal. So the expectations in that sense are relatively lower. Yeah. One of the things that I think, although I not necessarily belong to that school, but tech is an important part of what change people are going to see. I go to some of the fast food places, and they are the people who are wanting to dine are already there. They don't go to the counter to place the order, they place it over their phone and standing maybe 5 meters away from the till. So that's a trend. Right or wrong, good or bad, I'm not going to judge that. But that is what the phone is become an important part. So somewhere along the line, bringing along the phone into the equation is going to be a necessity. It may not be justified in all cases. It is justified in certain other cases, but that is what is going to happen. The other thing I see that particularly relevant to Saudi Arabia is the necessity for Saudiization. In the F&B sector, the real Saudiization is, as I see, relatively low. There will require to be education. There will require to be an induction of the Saudi into the workforce. You will need to have Saudis in the kitchen. You will have to have Saudis front of house. You will have to have Saudi, not just cashiers. And you will need to make that a way of life, because if you do not engage them, then your cost of doing business is phenomenally high.
As we touched before, finding the right way to educate them, inspire them, motivate them, and get them engaged is going to be very important. Vic, coming over to you, you've obviously just opened up in a new part of DQ. For you, how do you see the importance of food and beverage as being part of building a community, especially if it's a new community?
F&B plays a really key part, especially in Saudi. I think it's an amazing part of forming that community. Even if you look internationally, if you look at big brands, Alo Yoga recently opened a store in Dubai Mall. They put in a cafe in there. They normally don't do that, right? You could look at Ralph Lauren. They've got Ralph Cafe. So the lifestyle players, the luxury players, when they are now evolving their concepts, F&B becomes a part, because that's creating the community. That's creating the regular visit to the stores and understanding and the loyalty to the brand. So I think you're seeing it from both sides. Obviously, F&B operators trying to take this community feel and then push it further, or the other way around, where lifestyle operators or somebody like Kayanee, who has created a new concept where we are merging different aspects, and F&B is a huge part of that lifestyle, that community feel, to get that regularity. So I'm seeing it from both sides, but both internationally and locally. So I think there's somewhere where this will converge a little bit. I think one of the speakers previously said, the one thing I do feel in this market is that there is way too many, for example, cafes. There's way too many new concepts opening and closing. And I think there'll be a shakedown at some stage. Those who are able to create this community, whether it's locally, like what Talar mentioned, or it's extending that lifestyle concept a little bit more, I think they can stay through a bit longer, because there's a lot more affinity to the brand, a lot more of that community that you're talking about.
As you mentioned earlier, just to stay with you for a second, Vic, you mentioned earlier, obviously, the Kayanee concept is targeted at a certain demographic, a certain market. What are the elements for you that you think are important to attract that community, and most important, actually retain them within the space?
So we're very new. We are just two months. We are opened in the DQ, and obviously the DQ is a little bit of a sort of captive audience there. So the way Kayanee will expand will be to go outside, get into the more commercial malls, get into the more premium spaces, and then go out. As we do that, to me, so apparel is a big part of our business, and what we do is active wear, we do fashion wear, outerwear for Saudi women, but with a very international feel. But even if I open a store like that in a new mall coming up, there will be a cafe element that comes in with it. There will be that come in, browse through products, have a nice coffee, have a great smoothie, feel good, buy something good, or go for a dance class and then go out. So I think the retail, sort of merging retail, movement, and F&B is a very critical axis for us. And if you've seen that in Kayanee, where you come in and you can really feel that. So those three would be the pillars, right? People don't, or in general, right? Nobody's shopping for apparel every week, every month. There's a cycle to it. Even a Zara does it 4 to 6 times a year. But food is a constant thing. Dance or exercise is a constant thing. So those would be the fundamental pillars, and then you sort of bundle that in together to create a really cool concept. And to create that in Saudi, and then add these Saudi touches of hospitality, of local ingredients, of generosity and taking it out, I think is a wonderful thing for us to show.
So almost creating multiple sort of elements to the concept that allows that community to have different times of day, different touch points without the whole thing. So that seems very important to building the community. Talar, coming to you, we've touched a little bit about the importance of food and beverage within the kingdom. How do you think some of the future trends, the future strategies that are happening within the kingdom need to be taken on board if you're doing such a huge development as Red Sea Global? How important is that food and beverage strategic element to the whole development?
Well, of course, F&B is very important. If you want to talk a bit for Red Sea Global has it's a touristic destination, and we're going to have hotels. So definitely we're going to open to the world. So we need to make sure that we have diverse cuisines, from international brands to homegrown chefs. We want to show everyone the Saudi culture, the Saudi heritage, and the Saudi talents, whether they are designers, artists, jewelers, and in the F&B sector. And the F&B plays a different role in the luxury area. It's more to enhance the overall luxury experience for the guests. We also have our community, the staff villages, where all the staff from hotel operators, restaurants, retail, and our Red Sea Global staff are living there. So the role of F&B is different there. There it's more to serve the community, to uplift the community. So the type of the brands that we have there, it's different. It's more the affordable brands, having a variety of brands just to make the community happy. So this is regarding Red Sea Global. In general, so the social diners that we talked about, the food halls, will push developers also to take into consideration space, special MEP requirements, accessibility when they are developing their own properties. Another thing that I want to mention also, like the past 2 years that we witnessed, especially when I was working in malls, are the pop-ups and the activations. So the pop-up and activations are good for the F&B operator if they're bringing a new brand to test the market, and before putting high investment, high capex, and also to test if it will work in this type of mall or a plaza or in, for example, a Riyadh season. So from the developer side, it gives flexibility. The developer, instead of tying into like 2 or 3 5 years lease agreement, they can check this new brand that they don't know a lot about it and they don't know how the consumer will react by activating spaces. And it's an extra additional revenue, and most of the malls now are designing spaces for this type of activations. They can sometimes use also in malls, always there are the dead areas, so you can use them to activate them with these pop-up small concepts. So yeah, all these changes are influencing on the design and the strategies of the developers.
I mean, I think it's a great point. I think the use of activations, pop-ups, events and festivals, it's not only a great way to test those concepts, it's also a great opportunity in new developments to actually drive footfall, create critical mass as you're positioning it and driving people from there. So
it brings newness to the mall, and as you said, it will invite and encourage people to visit the mall because there's something new.
Madan, to you, obviously, in terms of when you're looking at developments from your business's point of view, again, same question really, how important is that sort of future trend within the F&B space, and how strategic is the thought process behind that?
Number one, what has been a center point is the Saudi population in itself, the demographics within the Saudi population, and the fact that it's a matter of time before tourism picks up, and that is going to bring in a lot of people. So if you take this as the profile, then what is that profile going to need, and what is their expectation in terms of their destination? For some reason, Riyadh seems to be the center point when it comes to investment. Despite the fact that land prices and cost of doing business is high. Having said that, there is a very strong case in terms of what that investment needs to be. So food and beverage is absolutely anchor. I don't think there's any business or any mall or anything that can survive, given the Saudi appetite for food, the bonding over food, the sweet tooth, and what have you. So food and beverage is critical. Entertainment is the next one. Again, taking into account the demographics, given that there are large families, children need to be entertained. Given what the weather in Riyadh most of the time is, there is a need for indoor spaces that need to be ideally green, because greenery is something that I would say somebody in Riyadh would crave for, which is what we are looking at in terms of development. In terms of development, also we are looking at the fact that Riyadh being where it is, you will have people from the region, from the neighboring cities and towns coming to Riyadh who will want to check into a hotel and then spend 2 or 3 days over the weekend and then go back. So all-inclusive, wholesome experience.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm going to ask you each the same question just to wrap up. If you have to give one single thing that we should be keeping our eye on in terms of what's going to impact spaces and developments from a food and beverage point of view, what would they be for you? Talar, can I start with you?
I was saying, I think, as I said, the new concepts that can create a social hub for everyone to go and enjoy the experience, where they focus on the experience. It's very important for the developers to understand the consumers and to understand the new brands that are upcoming and to design accordingly their developments. Because the costs are very high. Now everybody is selective when they're doing investments. So this market study and understanding is very important.
Great, thank you. Madan?
A unique experience and within a refined lifestyle.
Great, thank you. Vic, final word?
Yeah, for me, I think one, it's a bit more personal maybe. I feel the customer experience side of it, I think the operators need to focus a bit more on. Where they're very strong is if you go in general, food is at a very high standard. I don't think the customer experience is at the same high standard. The way customer service comes across and the level at which you take care of customers, and I think we tend to forget that a little bit. So I think that's a part where operators who do well can really go ahead, and we need some more work on that area.
Perfect, brilliant, thank you. Any questions from anyone in the audience?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you
Jennifer.
so
Thanks,
much.